Good evening, everyone. My name's Bronwyn Zandy, and I'm here to welcome you to Lessons from Hollywood, building the interactions of tomorrow today. Hollywood. It is quite magical, isn't it? It had the ability from when I was a small child, even today, to transport me to a different time and place and allow me to use my imagination. Now that imagination doesn't come cheap. $425 million. That's what it cost them to make Prometheus. Now that's a lot of money, but that's not to be scoffed at when you think about the $2.7 billion that they made as the global gross for that movie. I'll say that again, $2.7 billion. Now with all that money flying around, you'd think there'd be something to learn there. And that's what we're going to talk about today, to see if we can get some of that Hollywood magic. Now, before we go too much further, I just have to call out the spoiler alert. This is my foster cat, Willow, and she knows to cover her eyes if she doesn't want to see anything that she doesn't want to see. So we're going to be talking about a couple of different movies, a couple of different TV shows. Maybe you wouldn't have seen all of them. So just fair warning that, while I'll try my best, we may give away a few plots of something you may not have seen. So why? Why would we look to Hollywood? Many of you may have remembered a time like this. You may have remembered creating a web application not too different to that. Back then, every PC was beige, and some of us may have, committed some atrocities like splash pages, orange fonts on purple backgrounds, animated GIFs, and lots of centered text. We've come a long way since then. Now there's lots of different frameworks, templates, languages to help us build really effective applications. Now you can build an application from your phone, to a tablet, to a Surface Hub, to an Xbox, to a HoloLens. And if you're really, really keen, soon you're going to be able to build one for your toaster. But let's face it, a lot of us really just want to be like Tony Stark. He has an array of very nice cars to drive. He has an abundance of money. He has a talking house. And he has the ability to interact with holograms without the necessity of using glasses. Now, why do we find an interaction like this so compelling? Is it because they're not tied to the current software and hardware limitations, and then the fact that they can use their imagination and come up with something completely new? I think there's more to it than that. Hollywood is very good at the art of storytelling. Now, if we look at this, an email that may appear in your inbox at any day. It's from this random lady called Princess Leia. It's clearly addressed to the wrong person because I'm not Obi-Wan Kenobi. With a catchy title, Help Me Obi-Wan Kenobi, You're My Only Hope. Now, how many people think that this would have made it past their junk email? No one. Okay, so let's pretend for a minute it made it to our inbox. If you saw that, how many people would have even opened it? And how many people would have just deleted it? Most of us, yeah? But now let's picture you've just bought your new droid, R2-D2. And while cleaning him, he's played this random message, a holographic projection of a young woman clearly in need of help. Now, how many of us would have turned around and asked R2 to delete that message straight away? I don't want to see it again. No one? Yeah, who would have asked R2 to see the rest of the story? Yeah. Why is that? It's because we've already using the medium, we've gained an emotional connection. And it's really important with our applications as well. We want the users to gain an emotional connection to our applications. We want them to look further at the data. We want them to ask questions. And in a lot of the cases, we really want them to love our apps. So maybe there are some lessons to learn. So let's get learning. The first lesson we're going to talk about is the reboot. Hollywood loves a reboot. They like renewing what is old. They like to put a shine on something that's tried and true and tested, something that has made them money in the past. Now we're just going to have a quick look at the movie The Island. So in The Island, we have the doctor sitting at his desk. It's no ordinary desk. That desk is an interactive desktop with multiple different panels that he can interact with. Now, some of us might remember the Surface table. Anyone? Couple? Yeah. That was a really cool table of its time. It allowed you to do all sorts of interactions with many different fingers and people. Here what we did was we had a group of schoolgirls. We created a little geography game, and we used the pencil sharpeners that were miniature figures of the world and put a tag on the bottom, and we made them find it on the map. I digress. Back to the table. Looking at that table, he's got some nice ornaments there. That little pyramid there sitting next to his left elbow, that's not an ordinary desk ornament. That's a super mouse. It allows him to drag the panels around. But what's really cool about it, if you've seen the movie, is he twists it like a dial and it brings all the panels and collapses them into one. Now I must say I'm a bit of a fan of a dial. There's something about sitting in my lounge room with my stereo and having to turn the volume up with the remote control, going up and up and up. It's just not satisfying. To get up and hit that dial and crank it and hear the music go up is just not the same. So let's look at another instance in the real world. So this is my current car. This is the center panel. As you can see, it's full of fingerprints. That's because it's a touch screen. Now, it's great. It has a big screen. It's fully touch. It's really easy to use. It's very intuitive, and it gets a lot of stuff off the center console. The biggest problem I have with this is when I'm driving along, especially coming down this morning, in traffic, I like to be able to zoom in and zoom out on the navigation and get a bit of an idea on the traffic situation. To do that with this particular installation, I have to find the little plus and minus button and see if I've actually pressed it. The biggest problem with that as the driver is I have to take my eyes off the road. So it's good, but it's also bad. This is hopefully to be my previous car. Still have it at the moment. When I first got this car 3 years ago, it was full of technology. It almost drives itself. I was kind of disappointed when I first got it that it didn't have a touchscreen for the center console. Instead, it has this giant dial and these tactile buttons. Now, it's a bit weird to use at first, a bit slow. You move up, you move left, you move right, you can turn, you can press, all very tactile, but it seemed slow. But after about a week, it grew on me. I found that after I knew where everything was, I could whiz around those menus, and the tactile feel of the click of the dial meant that I could drive along in traffic, I could feel down for the dial, move it left and right, never take my eyes off the road. Lots of good, and I put the learning curve in the neutral zone because it is hard to learn at first, but gets pretty quick. But how does that apply to an app that you want to write today? Let's look at the camera. So here we have my digital SLR. How many people have a digital SLR? Yeah. So it's big, it's heavy, and it takes amazing photos, but it's hefty. And if you want to, you have to be pretty serious if you want to take it with you. What is really good about this camera is that it has a lot of dials and a lot of buttons. They're all very tactile. And what it allows me to do easily, and what it's designed for, is to set the settings and take a photo in focus without looking. So I could point it, at you, take an in-focus photo, because you're designed to look through the eyepiece. That's my camera. So how many people have a mobile phone with a camera in it? Hold them up. Come on, want to see them all? Okay, so what I want you to do now is close your eyes. I'm going to give you 10 seconds to take an in-focus photo of the person sitting next to you. Ready? And go. No cheating. and stop. So have a quick look at the photos that you took. How many people managed to take a photo that was in focus? Yep. Yeah, quite a few of you. How many managed to get their camera app launched? Few. How many managed to get their phone unlocked? And how many just completely gave up and didn't try? Yeah? Okay, so then out of the people that managed to get the phone to do something, how many of you had a fingerprint reader? Couple. And how many had some sort of tactile button that helped you get it unlocked? Quite a few. And then we have, how many had autofocus for detecting faces? Yeah. So that tactile button and that extra feeling really helped you take that photo. Without those, if you had a complete touchscreen, how many of you think you'd be able to take an in-focus photo? You do. Because you didn't have to unlock it. Awesome. So I wanted to show you a new device that's come out. Unfortunately, mine didn't ship in time to show you one for real. It's called a Surface Dial. So it's similar, it looks a bit like a mouse, but it's actually a giant dial, and it has a very tactile feel and a push button. So this thing works on any Windows 10 computer, and it's a wheel device as an input device as opposed to a mouse. And they've created a whole new radial controller class that's going to allow you, Neil's got one down the back. It allows you to create all sorts of different interactions. Neil can model for me. Thank you. Thanks, Neil. So they said that we're at our most creative and at our most productive when we're using both hands. So this isn't designed to be your primary device. It's meant to be using your secondary hand. So for me, it'd be my right hand because I'm left-handed. And what it does is it allows you to add extra functionality to your apps. So what I'm going to show you is an existing app called StaffPad. So what it does is allows you to compose music. Show you two different videos with slightly two different devices. So the first one here is using a Surface Pro 4. So he's going to interact with it without touching the screen. So what it allows him to do is use the dial to make edits and select. So he can use his finger and the pen, and then once he's selected it, he can use the dial to move the music up and down, so essentially change the key of the particular piece of music he's working on. Or he can select a single note and do the same thing. Now if we move it onto the Surface Studio, it opens up a whole new world. It interacts with the screen. So here they're using it like a stamping tool. And then they can use things like they pop up specific menus to do things like add crescendos. Now when I had a bit of a play with this when I was in Seattle, it was quite cool to use for zooming in and zooming out on a map. I thought it'd be really cool to use for like a shuttle for getting through video. And you know, it'd be cool to do like a safe picker for entering your PIN code or something like that. But it opens up a whole gamut of different possibilities for our applications. Something that you may not have thought of before to add something for the user. I'll remember to give this back to you. Yeah. Or I might just steal in my pocket.
I'm doing a session tomorrow on Dial. I'll promote myself while I do this. If you want to know how to develop for this, I'm doing a session on Dial and studio development tomorrow morning. Sorry, Ron.
You're right. So what do we learn with the reboot? Don't be afraid to put a new face on old tech. And don't forget to use things like tactile and haptic feedback. It gives the user a different experience to what they may be used to. Next up we have the HUD, the heads-up display. Now I'm going to pick probably the second movie you would probably think of when you think of a heads-up display. We're going to have a look at the reboot of RoboCop.
Routine scans. As you can see behind me, there were robots, and obviously their safety is everyone's.
So what's important here is that we have what is essentially a video stream, and what we're doing is drawing attention to specific things that the user's interested in. So here we've highlighted a person using the target, And we've popped up some separate informatics. So we've got a picture, we've got their name, we've got their age, and the really important information that they're not a threat. Now, you may have seen this in Iron Man as well. So it's not necessarily tied to having a super suit. The medium that you're presenting it in isn't necessarily important. So I'll quickly show you a slightly different example. This is a series called Person of Interest. This is their opening sequence.
You are being watched. The government has a secret system, a machine that spies on you every hour of every day.
So this is similar, but there's no suit involved. So they've gone with the scanline effect, sort of like the old TV look. And then what they're doing is they're picking out people's faces, highlighting a couple of facial features, and then adding a little like voice stress and telling you extra information like the call name and their ID and stuff like that. Now, we can pretty much build that today. So there's a few different technologies you can use for it. Today I'm going to choose the Microsoft Kinect. First up, we have the Kinect with a color camera, which I'm going to try and sit here. Oops. So I've got a color camera. Now I might need a couple of people to stand up a bit closer to the Kinect for me. Might need a couple of volunteers. Any volunteers for me? There we go. Just, you'll tell when it works. Might need you to stand forward a little bit. Because normally... Can I get you to stand up? Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, so awesome. Now we've done that. Frame rate. So what it's doing is it's picking up the people's faces, it's identifying a face, it's putting a box around it, and then it's looking at things like, do you have glasses? You know, are you happy? Are you sad? Now there's a few different ways you can do this. I've used the stuff that's built into the Kinect SDK itself, but you could use something like the Face API to do something similar. And then while I leave this here, then obviously the other thing that we're missing to match that demo is to turn the scan lines on, which is going to be fun because now I've lost my screen. So we can toggle this on. So then you get a scan light effect. All I've done is process the color stream and taken out every fifth and third line and made it black. So that's pretty easy to do with the Kinect. So what do we learn about the HUD? It's important to focus the user and to provide them with some complementary information that they may not have seen. So what could we have done with that demo? Well, we could also have just decided to pick out only people that it thought were over 40 wearing beards, and had glasses, so that you could alert the user to a particular demographic that you're searching for. Next one up is mapped. Hollywood is pretty good at showing maps. When they come to show information, other than probably The Matrix, they enjoy showing a map because a few things. It allows them to gather all the cast around one particular spot and have a bit of a conversation, but it also allows you to show your spatial information spatially. Now, most of us will have spatial data. How many people think they don't have spatial data? Cool, everyone has spatial data, cool. So I'm going to show you 3 different clips that show maps in a different way. So the first one is from a TV show called Westworld. So here it's a giant rotating model of the area. It looks like a plaster model. Then at the flick of a button, we've turned it into an interactive model. So here it gives you the sense of scale, and it allows you to center in on something that you're interested in. So it's an outlying sort of model. The next one's Avatar.
Son, I wish I had 10 more like you.
Look, Sully, just find out what the blue monkeys want. You know, I mean, we try to give them medicine, education, roads, but no, they like mud. And that wouldn't bother me. It's just that they're, can somebody just...
So notice the use of the informatics to pop up information about something he's specifically interested in.
Stop.
And he's using a few gestures to scroll across, and you get a sense of
Their
scale.
damn village
And then they've zoomed into the
happens to be
giant
resting on
holographic
the
tree.
richest-
Now you don't have to just use maps for above ground information. If you look at something like Prometheus, they use it to show underground.
Well, I'll be there.
Just take a little note there that they're using a very low detail to show the difference between the people moving around. And it's going to be an important point for something we're going to talk about a little bit later. So maps. I downloaded the USGS earthquake data. And this is how a lot of people will have actually looked at it in an Excel document. Something that you guys will probably see every day. Excel's a great tool, not so much for spatial data. When you're looking at that data, how many do you think can you tell by looking at it are in Australia? Hard to tell. How many, whereabouts are the ones that are over a 6 on the Richter scale? Pretty much impossible to tell unless you're really good at coordinates. So it took me about 2 minutes tops to do the next bit, which was to pull it into Power BI. So I took that file, put it into Power BI, and I added a filter. And straight away, what it allowed me to do was to filter on the Richter scale. I can see where the 7.9s are, and I can see that Australia doesn't really get a lot of earthquakes. The other scary thing when you turn that whole data set on is how many earthquakes there are every day. So when we're looking at mapping information, show your spatial data spatially. It allows the users to filter visually. Our brains process this information in a very different way when we're looking at it visually. It gives the user immediate context as well. So if we think about the Empire and the Death Star, how many people think that they never actually looked at their own plans in 3D? Because I think they would have found the fault in their own design. Next up, we're going to talk about gestures. Who's seen Black Mirror? A lot of people, yeah. I love this series. It's, for those who haven't seen it, it's a look at different technologies and a look into the future. And I think some of the ways that they sort of take fun of what we are up to today and where it's going, and some of the interactions they have are totally amazing. I love this series. So I'm going to show you a clip from 15 Million Merits. Notice use of the informatics again. So there we saw the use of lots and lots of different gestures. So we had the flick to get rid of the crowing rooster. We had the blind pull. We had going into the bathroom and selecting different options. Notice he didn't actually touch the mirror. And then of course we had the getting the toothpaste. I don't know if looking at my credits would actually just put me off from ever brushing my teeth again. Now we've seen gestures in lots of different places by now, and you can use them in different ways. So if you want to do something that's very first person, looking through a set of goggles, something like HoloLens, which I'll show you a bit more in a little minute. So it has a couple of built-in gestures to help you interact with your different applications. So the first one, and I'm going to teach you this one now because it's going to be important, is the air tap. And I'm going to teach it to the two sides of the room differently. So on this side, what I want you to do is raise your finger like you're pointing to the sky. And then to select, you bend your finger at the knuckle near your hand. So you select like that. Yep, you guys have got that. And then I'm going to teach you guys a second way to do it. This side of the room, I want you to hold your hand like a C. Yep, and then when you want to select, you just make your two fingers touch one another. So that's the way you do an air tap. That's how you select in HoloLens. It has a couple of others as well. You have the ability to scroll. Usually after you've done this, you could also use a fist, and you can move left, right, up and down. And then when you want to get back to a main menu and reset, hand out in a fist, and then flick your fingers open like a flower. They call it the bloom. Yeah, you guys have got it. Awesome. Now, just sort of hold your hands up in the air a bit like this for me for a bit. Now, how long does it take before your arms start to get a little bit tired of just sitting there? Not long. So you'll notice that a lot of times we correspond it with a voice action. So that can make it easier for the user once their arms get tired. You might want to do a couple of selects, but when it comes to typing something, you don't want to sit there and click on the keyboard. You want to be able to say the word. So think about pairing your gestures with voice. Now, when making gestures yourself, there's lots of lessons you can learn. And Minority Report had a really good example.
I got coffee, thank you. Danny Whitmer, twink from the Fed. Oops.
They didn't separate their concerns of their gestures. And that's important if you have to build your own. When you look at something like Microsoft Connect, that there is a V1. What I showed you there was a V2. You can build your own gestures. So what we did for this particular application was we took it to a museum and we let people interact with a giant mosaic. So we built our own gestures. We let them zoom out. We let them zoom in. The problem was I tested it. My boyfriend, who's 6'4", tested it. Worked really good. Then that night we had an 8-year-old girl come up and she went like this and it did not work because we did not test it for little girl arms. The other problem you can have is making sure that you keep your arms separate. So if you want to go to the left, make sure you don't use the same arm to go to the right because you can undo what you've just done. You learn these ones really quickly. So Connect is pretty cool. It allows you to spot up to 6 skeletons, so 6 people, and 24 joints per person. And again, it has the ability to pair it with voice to do commands as well. Now, the third one I wanted to show you is the leap motion. Has anyone seen leap? Yeah, cool. So what this guy is really good for is when you want to do something up really close, but you still don't want to touch the screen. So he's pretty cool. He does full hand and finger tracking, so it's that next level of detail. And what's cool for developers like us is that they do have an SDK that works with C# and Unity. And they have sort of morphed a bit in the last couple of years, and they've been working really closely with a lot of the VR headsets. So before Oculus came out with their touch controllers, there really wasn't a way to see your own hands. So a lot of people would pair it with either this or a Kinect. So gestures, they're great for exploring. They give the user something to do, and they're a little bit more interactive. They're great for dirty environments, so where you get your hands dirty and you don't want to then go and touch your computer. They're also equally good in clean environments, where you don't want to have to take off, say, a set of gloves every time you need to touch a computer. Remember to separate your concerns with your gestures, and trying to pair it with something like voice to stop the user getting tired arms is always a good idea. Next what I wanted to show you was War of the Fives. So this is lo-fi versus hi-fi. Now that doesn't necessarily mean high fidelity versus low fidelity. It could mean detail versus not detail. Now a lot of the older movies, they would use a low fidelity because they didn't have the technology at the time. But once we did have that technology, it was a little bit different. Who remembers the first Toy Story? Yeah. So this is Toy Story from 1995. Does it feel that long ago? This was one of the first, like, when it moved on from being a cartoon, right? It became very 3D. And what they did here was they made it super, super detailed. Look at the detail in that banister. Look at the box. Look at the detail in the laundry hamper. Now, Woody is there talking to Bo Peep. I'm not even looking at what they're saying. I'm looking at the awesome detail behind there. It is amazing. Like, they have gone all out. So everything is in focus and you're looking at the detail. You're not thinking about the story, though. So they learnt that lesson. By the time we got round to Toy Story 3, still looks great, doesn't it? But what they've done here is they've used a shallow depth of field instead. So what it means is, look at Woody. You listen to the story, you're not looking at the banister behind anymore because it's making you focus on Woody. It helps you concentrate on the story. Shallow focus. So sometimes detail can be distracting. So I'll show you a clip from Hunger Games. This is where they've decided not to go with detail. So again, they're using a map.
Right here, sir.
And the beast here, instead of doing a fully fledged fur, they've gone with a point cloud. You can see it's a beast. You can see he's pretty angry, and that's all you need to know for that particular thing that they're doing. So how do we do that in our own application? So what I'm going to show you, does anyone know what a diprotodon is? No, a couple of people. What's a diprotodon? Yes. Yeah, so he's essentially a giant wombat. So I'm kind of a bit partial to dinosaurs in Australia. So my brother has got the graphical genes. So I got him to make me a diprotodon model, and I've put him into HoloLens. So I'm just going to turn him on. And because I get sick of pronouncing diprotodon, I've called him Dippy. Just going to reset. And then I'm going to I'll let you have a look at this in a minute. Just got to wait for it to load. It's going to load in the middle of the room. Okay, so who hasn't used HoloLens yet? A couple of you? I need a volunteer. Anyone want to come up and have a play with my HoloLens? Yeah, do you want to come up? Okay, so you wear it a bit like a halo. You can leave your glasses on as well. It does work with glasses. So I'm going to put it on your head and tighten it up. It's a bit like a bike helmet, so you end up with bike hair. Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to put it on. Sorry, I might have to get you to grab the front, and then I'll tilt that up and do it up tight. Is that tight?
Yeah, it's pretty tight.
Pretty tight? Okay, so when you look over this way, you should see a hologram. Do you see a little wombat over here? Yeah? So he looks pretty cool. So while you're having a look, just have a good look around him, and I'm going to get the streaming up so you can see what he looks, everyone else can see what he looks like. No, this one doesn't actually. Wow, there are way too many networks on this. It's not showing up. I wrote my own hotspot because I thought it would be easier. So I might just have to connect to this one. So what do you think of it? So you can't see what he can see. I'll just show you my slide for a second so you can get an idea of what he can see while I'm getting this set up. So he can see two versions of Dippy. He can see one with full fur, and then he can see one that's a scanline version. Which one do you like better at the moment while you're standing close? Yeah, the fur one. So the fur one would be really good when you're doing something like teaching someone about megafauna and you want them to look really closely. Just make sure I've connected to that network. And I haven't. Okay, so I'll show you that instead while it's loading. I don't think I'm going to be able to stream because it's network drivers playing games on me. So now what I'll get you to do, because you guys can't see it for a minute, go to the back of the room. Oh, there's my other one. Now, when you're at the back of the room, tell me which one you prefer. Yeah, the one without the fur, because you're a little bit further away. So now what I want you to do is come up back to the front for me. And then remember how we taught you how to do the gestures? So I want you to look somewhere in the room and you can do the air tap and it should create new scanline versions of Dippy. Are you creating a bunch of them? Yeah, you're going crazy on me. So he's made a whole bunch. They're all different. They're all grey. So now that you can probably stop doing that now. So, sorry, it's still connecting. Have a look at Dippy. When you hit him, you'll see the cursor changes colour. Like when you look at him, the cursor will change a bit. You'll see you're on him. When you look at him, I've enabled a couple of different voice commands. So if you could say, make mail when you're looking at one of them.
Make mail?
Does it go blue and big?
Yeah.
Yep. And then if you look at one of the other ones and say, make female.
Make female.
What happens? Yeah, so it's a purpley pink and a bit smaller. Yeah, and then I can't believe this isn't streaming. And then finally, if you look at another one and say make baby. So is it super small and yellow? Okay, sorry, I'm going to live stream now, hopefully, so everyone else can see what you can see. It's just going to take a while. So, in that collection, he's created a herd of diprotodons now, right? So if you wanted to use that to manage your herd, and you wanted to know that something was wrong with one, and the pink one pops up and tells you it's a warning, that's a lot easier to notice than if you had the fur one and you had to make it a different color or pop up a warning. And yeah, it's trying to render out 1 million diprotodons. Anyway, I will be around tomorrow if you guys want to check out Dippy, because this is not going to stream for me. Sorry. So we'll just go back and I'll show you the image. I'll point them out so you can tell the difference. Where's my mouse? You can sit down now if you want, or you can play with him a bit more. Just undo the back. Yep, I messed up. All good. Thanks. So you can see there that we've got this one here is the full fur guy. So this is in my lounge room at home. I had a bit of fun over the week. This is the grey one that he would have seen. So then we said make male, so we made him like big and blue. This is the mummy, and here's a little baby. You can make him whatever scale you want. I've sort of made him so he sort of fits in your field of view. So where we're looking at trying to decide what sort of fidelity we want to show someone. So he's actually the same poly count for both of them. It's just that we've done a different texture. So use detail to focus the user. So if you want to make a really educational piece about diprotodons, the fur guy is the way to go. But if you want to use it to have a herd management, or you want to point out something, you don't need the fur. You just need to know that it's a diprotodon. Because sometimes detail can distract from the story. So who's seen Rogue One? Okay, so it's those who haven't seen it, there's a couple of scenes where they use CG. Now, I think I'm like the only one that seems to think this, but I thought the CG was really distracting because it was bad. Like, to me, it didn't look real, so I was concentrating on that the eyes didn't look real rather than listening to what the person was saying. So I usually find that sort of stuff distracting. So the last lesson that we're going to teach you today, I've called the plot thickens. So we know that with most movies, nothing is as it seems. There's twists, there's turns, there's always more detail. And your user information is always the same as well. So I'm going to tell you a bit of a story. We were going down to Falls Creek. So I live in Brisbane. Falls Creek is in Victoria. We were going to drive. It's a long way, so it's too far to drive in one day. So on the first night, we were aiming to drive 1,300 Ks in one hit to get most of it done in one go. And we're going to do it on Christmas Day, which meant that I had to find some accommodation. Now, this was about 2 weeks out from Christmas, so I was in a bit of a rush to lock something down. And after driving that day, we didn't know what the traffic would be like, and so we was presuming that we would probably turn up pretty late. So I jumped on and looked for somewhere to stay and booked a hotel that looked fairly good, that was available and not too expensive. So given that information you can see there, how many people would say that was probably an okay hotel to book? A few of you, yeah. So it's average 4 stars. It's had over 100 reviews, and they're mainly 3 and over. So booked it, just so I could secure something. Then I moved on. I read the first 5-star review. 5-star reviews sounded pretty good. Then I read the response, because I usually check those out as well. Looked pretty promising, fairly friendly, all good. I'm still pretty happy that I've booked this hotel. Then I flipped and I read one of the 1-star reviews. Now, this was pretty negative. Like, it was like reception's locked. I tried calling. They were really rude. Like, oh. Then I read their response, and this is usually my big tell. I read their response, and it was pretty aggressive and nasty. So at this point, I freaked out and went, the last thing I want to do after driving 1,300 Ks is get a grumpy receptionist or them not let me in and we have to spend the night in the car. So how many people think they might have rethought their decision? Couple. So some of you still would have stayed there. Cool. So then I thought about this afterwards and I thought, how could I have done this smarter? Did I actually make the right decision? Come over here. So what we did was I went and used the sentiment analysis API. So what that allows you to do is throw a bunch of text in and it analyzes it for you for sentiment. So to test that out, I took the first 5-star review and I just copied and pasted it in to see what it would say. And that 5-star review said that it was 99% positive. It also highlighted a bunch of the different keywords from that review. Talked about spa, talked about a good night, a good place, the rooms. Happy so far. Then to check the other end of the spectrum, I shoved the 1-star review in. 0% sentiment. That person was actually unhappy, even with their words. So I was pretty happy with that. So then what I did, so if you were using this on your own data, you would probably actually have the data. I didn't have the data, so I had to sort of get it. So with a bit of trickery, I processed all 110 reviews. And what did I find? I found out of the 110 reviews that it had an average of 70% positive sentiment. So overall, people were happy with the hotel. And then I looked at the responses as well, just to see if the person was like the people manning the site were like nut jobs or a bit off the chart. But overall, they were 85% positive sentiment. So I'm assuming that that person had a bad experience and the person responding had had a very bad day as well. So maybe I was a little bit harsh in cancelling my booking. Out of that, I also grabbed the top 5 keywords based on the text analysis. And that's across all reviews: room, restaurant, bed, staff, and Wi-Fi. Now, because I'm in Australia and I have my own Wi-Fi, I didn't care about that. I was going to get there late at night, leave the next morning, didn't care about the restaurant. But I really did care about the bed and the staff at that point. So then I wanted to know more. I wanted to know what there was else to this story. So I took the negative reviewer and I took all 7 of her reviews and I ran a sentiment analysis across her. And she came out as 82.6% positive. Now, that's not statistically significant because she's only done 7, but it sort of matched with her review. So I think generally she's positive and she just must have had a really bad experience at this hotel. So I thought her review was valid as well. And I thought, wow, what else can I find out about these people? Because I want to know are they similar to me? Do they care about the same things I care about? So then I had a look at what you could see about a person. So one of the reviews, you could get their age. They were 50 to 64. I could get their gender. I knew it was a woman. And I could tell they were from Brisbane. And this is not me, by the way. No, I'm not 50 to 64. Luckily, not quite yet. But then when I looked at my other reviewer, I couldn't get anything about her. Like, no information. But, you know, I knew it was a her because she has a profile picture. Now, I noticed there was quite a few reviews that don't reveal any of those information. So I got a bit sneaky. So there wasn't a lot to go on. So I decided to use the Face API. And as a test, because these pictures are pretty tiny, I ran this one through. And this person came up as a female. Yeah, looks right. And age 42.5. And now I am probably like the worst guesser of ages in the world, but I thought 42.5 is, yeah, I could believe that. So with that, what I did was I took everyone that I sucked information down from that didn't have a gender and an age and tried to work it out. Now when I eyeballed the data, which is always important, I decided that if it came back and told me the person was under 15, that the photo probably wasn't of them. And when I had a look at some of the photos, it generally tended to, I guessed, was a photo of their kid. So I ruled those ones out. So then I was able to additionally add to my metadata 7 matches from 65. So I added some extra information that I didn't know before. Now, I have all this information. What do I do with it is probably the biggest question. So what I did was I went to Power BI. So I had this data, and I just uploaded it and made some interactive graphs. So there I could see, get a summary here. I could see the negative, positive sentiment. I could see the reviews. I could see the rating. I could see the breakup of the genders, and I could see their age group. So then if I wanted to be super sure that these people were like me, I could then go and filter to my heart's content. I could check people that match my gender. I could check people that check my age. Now, I generally wouldn't go to this level of detail for one night at a hotel, but if I was going to do a 3-week tour with a company in the middle of nowhere, I want to sort of have a bit of assurance that I'm going to have a good time and I'm not going to come back unhappy. Now, you guys could do that in your data today as well, because most of us have lots and lots of different data sets. We can combine them together, but then we can also use other things like these cognitive services APIs to add to the metadata we already have. And what that allows us to do is allows the user to explore it in different ways that we would never have thought of. So the plot thickens. Never rely on face value. When you see an overall statistic, you want to know more. You want to know what is the detail of that. Enhance and combine your data and add to the metadata you already have so you can help the user discover the full story. So that's a wrap. But what did we learn from Hollywood today? There's lots of lessons. I've picked 6 for you today. So the first one was the reboot. Put a new face on old tech. Think of different ways to use something you've seen before. Heads-up display. Use information to focus the user and add extra information that they won't have necessarily seen themselves. Mapped. Show your spatial data spatially. Grand gesture. Use gestures. They're great and fun to explore. They add a different aspect to the user, but also remember to separate your concerns. The War of the Fives. Decide what sort of fidelity and what information is important and how to focus the user on the detail that's important. Because sometimes too much detail of the wrong thing can focus the user on the wrong thing. And lastly, the plot thickens. Allow the user to explore, get more information and add to what you already have. So before I open it up to questions, because we have a few minutes at the end, overall, when you're adding and looking to Hollywood for inspiration, don't forget to have some fun. So we had a bit of fun a few years ago with our Connect, so I want to close that with you here.
Hi, it's John from Sol Solutions, and this is Connect with the Mercury Particle Engine. Flame on!
So thank you guys very much. I know it's pretty late, and I just wanted to know if you guys had any questions. We have a few more minutes. No, you guys are all quiet. Yeah.
So how did the room work out after all that data?
Well, I cancelled that room, right? So I didn't go to that hotel. So I did this after we got back, and I looked at it and went, I was probably too harsh. It probably would have been okay. But just the thought of turning up to a hotel and not being able to get in after driving all day with us, we would have been grumpy. I just was like, no, I don't want the hassle. But yes, it would be, yes. I think I might have made the wrong decision. I may have been too hasty. Anyone else? Yep.
When you were talking about gestures, you said you could separate your concerns.
Yeah.
Yeah, what do you mean by that?
So you need to make sure that you use different arms, different appendages for different things. So my prime example would be if you use the same arm to do something that negates what you've just done. So a lot of people, when we started using Connect, for instance, we would say, we would do this and detect that the arm's gone out, and we might pan to the left. And then to go to the right, we might move it back, which sounds okay separately, but when you board them together, so I go left and then I'm finished, I go back to where I was, and then they can negate themselves. So you'll find a lot of the gestures are very one-handed, they're very specific, and they don't usually use two hands. A lot of them are, like the newer ones, have all done with machine learning, but this is when you're trying to detect it based on joints. Anyone else?
So the HPU in the HoloLens.
Yep.
My understanding is that gesture identification is hardwired into that.
Yeah. So that tap gesture and the bloom and like the scroll.
Right. So if HoloLens comes up with some new gestures that they've done the neural learning with, is it like typically a firmware upgrade?
I don't know how they would do it. I'm not sure how they would do it on HoloLens. I would imagine it would be some sort of update. But yeah, so with like Connect, for instance, so the first version didn't have any interactions. So when they brought out the second version, they brought out some interactions. So they brought out the ability to do like a push touch to select, and they did do a scroll as well. So that was just a change to the SDK. HoloLens, I would imagine it would be an update. I'm not sure. They haven't done anything like that yet, but yeah. Yep. So they don't have an API, which, you know, isn't surprising. I kind of like screen scraped it a bit. Yeah. For the sentiment analysis on the negative reviewers, those ones I got bored and just cut and paste myself. But for the 110, I was like, I don't really want to spend all day, so I did sort of screen scrape a little bit and got most of it. But yes, if you were going to do it, you would have your own data sets. Anyone else? That's it. Awesome. Well, thank you guys very much for coming along, and I hope you had a bit of fun.